are alive. What's going on, everybody? This is the yet to be named IOST Sutler Ventures podcast. We got to figure out the name. I'm sitting here with two of my friends and colleagues. This is Dmitry Chesnikov and Mike Finch. You guys want to introduce yourself?
Let's go for it.
My name is Mike Finch, like Q said, founding partner of Sutler Ventures, one of the founders of ICO Alert, drinking a Maine beer company porter right now. It's good stuff.
And I'm Dmitry Chesnikov. I'm from the ICO Alert team. We work together quite a bit. I've come from financial background. I've appeared a little bit on different podcasts and put out a little bit of content. So excited to be here on this team, Sutler Ventures.
Yeah, you're a veteran at these podcasts by now, right?
Yeah. This is what happens.
Is he an official roundtabler?
He is not an official roundtabler. He comes on frequently as a guest. So he's like a, it's like a featuring Dmitry Chesnikov whenever we had him on.
It's like that friend who just like comes around and you deal with him, but he's not like a knight of the round table or whatever, right?
I usually get invites like live on the round table, so I have to watch every single round table in order to see if I get an invite.
Yep, makes sense.
Cool. Well, I'm Zach Quezada. You guys know me as Q or at that dApp guy on Twitter. Obviously, we're here to talk about IOST. We're here to talk about all things crypto. So I know we got the introductions out of the way. We do want to visit a couple comments from the weekly update that we had. You guys did come in and ask or tell us about the IOST names that we should use for this podcast. So I'm going to look this up really quick. We had a couple. Do you guys have any guesses as to what we should be calling this podcast right now?
You know what? Yeah, it's
wow, you guys are really killing it.
Yeah,
riveting conversation. We're
something like that obviously incorporates IOST and Sutler.
Okay.
Yeah.
So here's what we have so far: IOST Overtime, Sutler Coalition, iVenture News. We have IOST Cast, IOST 101, IOST Sutler, or Sutler IOST. So these are the ones that we have up to this point.
Some people didn't try at all. But some of those, what was the I? Was it I?
I liked iVenture News.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, that is pretty cool. I think we might give that one a guess. Please try a little bit harder. We will look into your guys' comments on this video as well to see what we're going to name the yet to be named podcast.
And let's say this, because we're going to be ordering swag here in a bit.
Oh, are we?
If you come up with the name, we'll get you a little swag bag. It's not going to be next week. It's going to take a little while. Patience is a virtue, but we're getting swag, so that will definitely be a nice reward for coming up with the name.
Starting the podcast with a giveaway. Let's go.
See, that's how you know he's a veteran.
Yep.
Right.
All right, so we'll move on. Our first topic here is going to be something that actually just happened. It was Jimmy's AMA that he had in the Telegram group. Did you guys catch that AMA?
Yeah, that was great. I've been overall very impressed with Jimmy and Ben just being active, right? Like, I can't imagine what the process behind the scenes looks like when you're looking at this on a global scale. And like, I think Jimmy tweeted the other day, I think we liked it or retweeted it on the Sutler Ventures Twitter. I think it was yesterday. It was basically like, if you want to be a node, DM me. I'll help you get set up. Like, where else do you get that? So claps for Jimmy there. But yeah, anyway, I thought it was a good AMA for sure.
Awesome. Were there any topics that you like specifically saw? I know I saw that he talked about the secret weapon. I know we talked about that on the last weekly update. I kind of thought it was the Chrome extension wallet, and I actually was wrong, and Mike was right because Jimmy said it's actually going to be released in April. Not the Chrome extension wallet, but the secret weapon that I thought was the Chrome extension wallet. So, Dimitri, do you have any guesses as to what a secret weapon might be? He said it was for dApp usage.
I don't know. I mean, honestly, IOST has so many things right now in their like back pocket, I think. So I'm excited to kind of see the announcement of what it actually is. I mean, we all love speculation, you know. So,
yeah, I don't know. I've been thinking about what it could possibly be, and obviously looking at other protocols for things that they have that IOST doesn't, and I can't think of what it is. You know, obviously we hope it's something like big. Last thing you want is an announcement that kind of flounders and it isn't much, but yeah, it's definitely something coming. The goal was end of March, I think, and now they're saying April, so
Yeah,
little
I think
delay.
it's early
but
April.
Yeah, but all things considered, with the mainnet launch and whatnot, that's good. But yeah, it'll be interesting. I mean, if it helps dApp usage, like one of the things we'll talk about is some of these dApps, like Crypto Derby is a big one we want to hit on. But as cool as the dApp is, if there's a ton of friction to use it, no one really is going to use it, right? That it's going to be kind of like a big echo chamber there from a usage standpoint.
Yeah, I'm interested to see dApp usage in different areas. I know like we haven't even really got to that in EOS or any of the other protocols, but I would love to get information on who uses dApps. Like what part of the country uses dApps? Like Crypto Derby, I think, is Japanese. So I wonder if they have a ton of Japanese users and how that affects, dApp usage in Japan for IOST.
Right. dApps kind of remind me of whenever ICOs were kicking off, right? Like back in the day, there were actually more people trying to buy ICOs than there were ICOs, right? So like there was this big kind of demand, and it's not a perfect metaphor, but like dApps kind of seem to fall into that kind of first phase of what ICOs did before people really knew kind of what the benefit of running an ICO was, right? I.e. raising money and building a user base at the same time. So I don't know, maybe it'll take just general adoption from a handful of dApps to kind of push that into more of the mainstream. But I could see like dApp conferences and some of these things happen eventually,
Yeah, and it's also interesting the fact that like most dApps are gambling dApps,
Right.
So it'd be interesting to see how the IOST ecosystem is gonna basically start deploying these dApps and how many of them will be gambling dApps or whatnot. Because right now, look at Tron. They get like 98% of them are like gambling dApps.
Yep.
So
definitely. I kind of talk about dApps in the way that you talk about games on consoles. So like everybody, at least our age, needed to buy an Xbox because they wanted to play Halo.
Right.
And that's you could think about that in the sense of IOST being the Xbox and Halo being the dApp. So if there's a really sweet dApp, then people, that gets the adoption. That makes me want to download the wallet extension. That makes me want to download, everything I need to do to use that dApp.
Yeah, 100%. So we'll see.
Yeah. Any other things that in that AMA? I know the only other thing I had was that people were concerned with BIS being the only place that they could vote. Now I don't think that that's going to be the case forever, which Jimmy actually said that's true. BIS is just taking care of that right now.
Right.
So is that going to be? Is it going to be a Trezor and a Ledger thing? Is it going to be where are they going to be able to vote here in the next month?
Yeah, it's a good question. I would doubt it's done through the hardware wallet because that sort of integration would be tough to vote through that cold wallet setup. I know he did mention on the AMA though that Huobi will have one. I know they're working on it. He said it's doubtful that Binance would have one, which makes sense, right? Like Binance is a massive
they got other
company.
Things to
They're they're not really worried about one specific protocol. One token they list for creating a voting platform, because in that case they're going to need to do it for so many others they list. But
sure.
I think the difference is that instead of kind of waiting for their own internal IOST voting setup to be created, they launched the mainnet, knew that these partners could work on that voting setup, i.e. BIS, i.e. Huobi's working on it now, versus pushing the mainnet back, even though the code's done, it's ready. So I get that, right? It's you kind of go about it backwards, right? Instead of offering your own IOST based voting setup first, right? You work with partners, i.e. BIS, who essentially are some folks who helped invest in IOST in the first place.
Got it.
It's frustrating, right? Like I know people have had issues with BIS. Obviously the unstaking period makes it tough to kind of, wait 7 days on that. So it's kind of like we said in the weekly update, right? Like it's coming, just be patient for now, use your BIS, wait for some of the other wallets or exchanges or whatever as they're coming. So
once that is introduced, that's gonna be way easier. Once you have Huobi on board and all those things.
Yeah, definitely. If you're somebody who wants to actively trade this stuff and grab a couple of days of rewards, then the exchange probably makes sense. If you're a long-term holder, right, then a wallet from IOST where you're able to vote makes sense. Lisk, a lot of these other protocols where you vote, they all have it.
Yeah.
It's not, it's not super complicated, I don't think. It just takes time to get done.
Yeah, there's a couple that I would use on EOS that are pretty seamless, and that would be Scatter. They let you actually stake and unstake via their wallet, their desktop wallet, which is awesome. And then you can actually link your wallet, your Scatter wallet, and use like toolkits that other block producers have created. So I think you look to that and say that, hey, IOST is going to have all of this stuff shortly.
Right, and a lot of which will be from the team itself too, which is big.
Yeah,
because then there's
huge.
not nearly as much counterparty risk, I'd argue. So, yeah. One other thing a couple pieces I grabbed from the AMA. One was Jimmy said there are over 100 employees now at IOST. So that's grown. That certainly wasn't the case when they were in testnet.
That place looks nice.
Oh yeah, we need to throw those in the comments or dub them over.
Yeah.
But did you see the new office sketches that they have?
Oh my god.
Oh, load them up for them. They're badass. Yeah, one is like a bar and the other one is the office, but looks real clean. Essentially, it's just it's just computer generated. It's not done yet, but if you're what's that?
A concept or
like a concept, right? Just some pictures. He showed two. Where essentially if you're putting together this office space, the architect will basically just, generate some concepts for you kind of deal. And he plugged them in that AMA. I knew there was a recap of the AMA, so check that out just in general, but they look badass. So that would be awesome. Obviously they've got offices in Beijing and New York right now, I believe it is. So, being able to go into the Beijing office and have a setup like that with like a bar and, workspace and all that would be super cool.
Their Beijing office is the main spot.
There it is. Check that out.
Oh my god.
Yeah, it's clean.
Yeah, it looks sick.
Real clean.
Real sick.
Yeah, we should definitely visit them.
Yeah.
Jimmy,
Do they
if
have
you're
beds?
listening,
Yeah, right. Can we just, crash at the office?
hop on over.
Right.
Just a quick plane ride.
Right. But that was a big one. Jimmy also said that they're coming out with an updated roadmap for this year, and I would imagine part of next year, some of which will include layer 2 solutions, specifically side chains, is what he said. So, looking ahead to the future of needing, further scalability past what we currently have. He said right now, based on the virtual machine setup that IOST has, it's faster than EOS and faster than obviously ETH and others. So, if they're at 8,000 or 10,000 or whatever it is right now, they're, maybe they're slightly faster, but obviously, if we're looking for mass adoption, scalability is always a big topic. We've got to get past whatever that number is currently. So that's, it's cool to see that they're looking ahead. They're not kind of, sitting back. They're ready to go on the next roadmap.
It's interesting to see the side chain action that's going on EOS specifically right now. There's a bunch of philosophical differences within the people within the EOS community. There's some people say, hey, the main chain needs to be what you're building on. Others are saying, hey, no, when you're building something, you just build your side chain so that we don't have to deal with the RAM issues with all this CPU stuff. So that's going on in EOS. Again, we should look to these other protocols because history repeats itself, especially when you're talking about. I mean, it's not the same tech, but it's generally around that same tech. So,
right.
It'll be interesting to see what side chains start to pop up, as we go. Yeah,
it'll definitely be. It'll be interesting. I mean, and when Jimmy's talking about side chains too, he's referring to being able to kind of locate specific dApps or specific initiatives on a side chain to the IOST main chain. So
not completely separate, but
right?
still.
Exactly. Not like a competing main chain, obviously. You have with, is it like Talos on EOS or something? And obviously, this is an IOST podcast, but we're not trying to shit on other protocols or anything like that. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see for sure. So that was a big one. It was good to see they're looking towards the future already, even after. I mean, what has it been 9 days since mainnet? So
that's what I was gonna say. So since the mainnet launch, right now we're showing 14 million transactions in 9 days. So to kind of give you an idea, I looked up, let's say Tron, for example. They did 2.2 million transactions yesterday. So if you kind of break this down, into 9 days, we're kind of close to where Tron is essentially right now, and they've already had their mainnet launched for some time, right?
Right.
So it's a pretty good sign so far.
Yeah.
Jimmy's actually talked a lot about that. He's brought up the other three main protocols a lot in his like tweets. It's like part of his marketing campaign is to like say that we're the fourth, scalable blockchain.
The dude's smart, man.
Yeah.
I mean, it's to like kind of very clearly put yourself in that camp.
Yes.
Where EOS, ETH, Tron, right? Like certainly each have problems, right? IOST will always have problems. None of these are perfect.
Yes.
But it's smart to attach yourself there. The one thing I think you should start doing though is saying, like in some of the blog posts, it'll be like, we're going to be the fourth, fully scalable, whatever. It's like, dude, we want to be the best. Like it'll be interesting to see when we get to that point when it's like, no, we're the best, not we're like the fourth. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely.
So,
that's cool. So did you guys have anything else about the AMA that we might have missed?
One other thing that I thought was interesting, obviously, we've seen a ton of different ICOs through ICO Alert, and Jimmy brought up an interesting point on the AMA in saying that, and I think this was brought up via a question.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was like a softball pitch to him or what, but, it makes sense. So he basically said because IOST didn't run a public sale, because they were backed pretty much solely by VCs, they're really held accountable in a formal way.
Got it.
Right? Meaning that like if you run an ICO, yes, you have, both your users and your backers, right? The users are also raising money for you, right? They're contributing to the ICO. Certainly you want to do good for them, but if you kind of screw around and maybe increase that events and entertainment budget or something like that, there's nothing really one individual person can do, right? It would take like the whole collection of the thousands of ICO contributors to really make a difference, and they would basically have to go against the underlying incentive model in the ICO, which is, hey, I contributed to your ICO, hey, I use your ICO to help, or I use your protocol to help, boost it. I'm talking about it, right? Like that's the clear incentive model. So my point is in being backed by VCs, and like Jimmy said, they're held a little more accountable than a traditional public sale ICO. Obviously some ICOs, right? A lot of them, especially as we got into 2017 and into 2018, will do the private sale, right? Where it's not public at all. You get some VC backing, you get a couple million.
Hybrid.
Yeah, it's like a hybrid model. So that's not the case for all of them, but I thought it was an interesting point. And he basically said, we don't have any room to fool around, right? Like we've got Sequoia Capital China, we've got Matrix Partners. Like these are big companies who are like, where's the return? What's going on?
That's a good point. I think one of the conversations we've had with Chris and a couple other people in the Telegram chat is that the ICO actually, one of the cool things about an ICO is it was fundraising and community development at the same time. So that's one of the things that we always talk about in the Telegram chat, saying we didn't actually have an ICO. IOST didn't have an ICO.
Right.
So you kind of lost out on that, although I don't even know how good their ICO would have done in the depths of the bear market. So it's still well, but you kind of lost that element of like community development. So it's double-edged sword, right? Because you can raise funds, you can raise a community, but that community can also be those dumbasses, for lack of a better word, that want to know what the price is every 5 seconds.
Right.
It's interesting because the way I think they approach the community development is through actual like apps like Berminal and others.
Bermy.
Yeah, exactly. So that has actually developed with the user base and the community that actually cares about the app and the value that it provides to them, right? And then that kind of ties into IOST from that.
Right. It's more like organic, like, hey, this is a, you're not like tied to this because you gave us $1,000. Right. You're tied to this because you actually like using our application, kind of deal. And we're seeing multiple ways to raise money now too. Like Binance is basically dominating, as far as I know, the IEO space, or initial exchange offering. They just had
Launchpad.
the Launchpad. They just had I think it's Seller Network. Did you guys see that? sold out in another, like, it was actually the fastest they've done yet.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, where, you know, I think the numbers were like 3,000 or 5,000 people, you know, hit the like send my funds kind of deal. I want in on this, and only maybe 380 people got in.
Wow.
So
at least you don't have to deal with the gas stuff that you had to deal with on Ethereum, right?
kind of, because what it seems to be is that it's just bots running this, right?
Yeah,
So
you have like. Yeah, but it comes down to speed, right?
Exactly.
And the algo, or it takes over to in order to get in. When it's scarce like that, and you're trying to get in, they can see it.
It's tough. And what you have there is you like. So if you break it down, right, you look at Seller and Binance, right, on that side. Great, we sold out in fucking 24 seconds or whatever it is.
There's
you know,
reputation involved.
And you don't have as many. To your point about like why ICOs are powerful, you don't have as many people that then are connected. You know, under that incentive model where they're going to go and spread the word. If you had all 3,800 or 5,800 or whatever that number was who were able to get in even in a smaller amount, now you have this like, you know, army of folks who are like, hey, this is the new hot thing. Let me go push this in Telegrams or Reddits or whatever. You know, so I kind of get both sides. I mean, the biggest winner I think is Binance, right? Like CZ's killing it on that front because now they've done 3 in a row, I think. BitTorrent, Fetch, and Seller, all of which have basically sold out instantly.
Yeah.
And if you're a fund or you're a retail investor or whatever, right? Like it only makes sense that after 3 for 3, you would try and get in.
Yeah.
And I bet what we see is just as we saw with BitTorrent, I'm not sure if Fetch did this, but I bet we see Seller, as soon as it starts trading, things are going to pump like crazy, you know, and then maybe there'll be some dump from those bots that got in early. But
so are you getting an like, okay, you said IEO. Is there a specific bonus that you're getting by being in that sale, or is it?
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Okay.
I would guess that the project has some say over that.
Got it.
Okay. Obviously parameters from Binance, but yeah, I mean, it's interesting, right? Like, one of the things we'll talk about is like how IOST can kind of work within that, right?
Yeah.
Like,
I'm interested for that.
We talked about on the weekly update last week, you know, are we going to see kind of an ERC20 style token under IOST, right? Like really the focus is all on IOST right now, right? It's all on that like protocol layer token. We haven't seen, other than just dApps, we haven't seen a ton of that kind of ecosystem or infrastructure come to life yet.
Still so new. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. All right. So this is what we're going to do. Speaking of Berminal, Dimitri actually went up to New York City to visit the Berminal offices, correct?
Yeah.
So we're gonna actually show the video now, and then we will have Dimitri talk about his visit and go from there.
Hey guys, this is Dimitri from Sutler Ventures. I'm in my home city, New York, and we have Stock Exchange in the background. And I'm here to meet Ray, who's a co-founder of IOST and the app that we all love called Berminal. We're all going to talk about IOST ecosystem and the upcoming mainnet launch. Let's go.
All right, so Dimitri survived New York City. Dimitri, tell me about the visit, man.
Well, I mean, New York is my hometown, so I can survive that. And yeah, the visit was amazing. Their office is beautiful. They're located close to Wall Street on the financial district in New York, and I think they're on like 50th floor.
It's a penthouse, right?
Yeah,
Basically.
Yeah. So the view is amazing. You can see Statue of Liberty there. You can see. I think you saw it in the video there. It's the setup is amazing. What they have over there. And Ray was an amazing host. When I arrived, you know, he showed me the fridge. He asked me what kind of drink I wanted. You know, so he made me a beverage, which was very tasty.
Big.
Yeah, I was there right before the mainnet launch, so we got a chance to kind of talk about how things are gonna roll out. What's his like involvement there? What is Berminal looking to do? What is Bermi looking to do? And kind of share a lot of our resources that we have, that he has, bounce certain ideas. It was amazing to actually sit down, have a few drinks, and talk about things that are coming up, and all the resources that we have and he has on his end, and how we can work together. So after that, I mean, we clicked right away.
Did you ask him when all the Berm tokens I've earned on Berminal are going to hit exchanges?
Yeah. So I asked him. It's funny, and I actually brought that up. I was saying, Ray, you should pull up Mike's account, and sell information to hedge funds, So he had a good laugh from that. But he said he's not sure yet, in terms of when they're looking to do that.
Right.
We had a pretty good conversation about just exchanges and when is the right time to kind of go into exchanges based on our experience, working with ICOs, and because sometimes, you'll have like certain ICOs and tokens go into exchanges at the wrong time, and that can be very devastating. So I think they're doing the right thing by just kind of waiting right now, and then figuring things out in terms of like when is the right time to execute this. Rather than kind of rush it out and make it happen. They're doing well with the users, and everything else, which is the main goal. He did say that the main goal of Bermi is to actually attract users that are not in crypto, which was very interesting because when you set up the account with Bermi, you get the wallet, and it's very seamless. So the people that use it are like, oh great, I have the wallet now. I didn't have to do a bunch of crazy stuff that I don't understand, and now you reel them into crypto, right? So that was the whole kind of the purpose of the setup that they have with Bermi, and they're doing pretty well. So.
Yeah, I wonder, could that be a part, just thinking out loud here, could that be some form of the secret weapon? Because you're right? Like, when you set up a Bermi account or you set up a Berminal account, you input your email, password, same stuff as if you're creating a Facebook or whatever, right? Bermi is basically a video content app. So I wonder if like that isn't, if some core part of that, they can't take an input into the secret weapon somehow, because they've seen it work, right? Like me, everybody else, right? Like I've been liking, or not liking, but rather saying bullish or bearish on news, and been doing the price stuff on Berminal and doing all these things. Like I've earned these tokens, which is why I ask about the exchanges. But yeah, it's completely seamless, right? Like I don't have to have a an IOST account. I don't have to have some third party that is gonna allow me to like approve or disapprove the transaction. I don't have to have any of this, right? I just interact and earn the tokens. So I don't know.
So here's my concern from like a user standpoint, because BAT does this, but they haven't implemented it yet. So the BAT token was going to be used for people on the Brave browser, which you said you just saw that they have like 5 million
monthly active users, which is crazy. I had no idea.
So they haven't implemented it yet, but basically you'll be able to earn BAT when you like watch advertisements or something like that. You're essentially like earning while you're playing, essentially, or not playing, but you're viewing the way. Yeah, essentially. Right. So my only concern with all of this is like, if you take an outside user that's not a crypto user and you give them a crypto token, how are they exchanging that? There has to be some way to exchange it immediately to their fiat, or it's going to be completely like nonsense. Because what you'll have is, okay, I earned a ton. I'm this person that knows nothing about crypto. I earned a ton of BAT. I earned a ton of Bermi tokens, and now I have all this Bermi. So what? I go to Binance and then I go to Coinbase and then I do all this. Like,
so it's actually it's interesting because I remember back in the day, one of my friends texted me and he got like I think like it was some kind of 5 mile token or something like that.
Cyber miles.
Yeah. And he was saying, it's like, what is this? So it kind of piqued his curiosity, and he asked me, like, what do I do with this, right? So I think the idea is that when people are not in crypto and they get these tokens, it's gonna like be like, well, what does this do? And they're gonna start researching it and kind of looking into it more, right? So from that standpoint, they're like, okay, you grab their attention, and then they go from there in terms of.
It could definitely be a catalyst like that. Yeah. The other way I envision it too is, and I guess a question like, or devil's advocate to your point would be, why do they have to exchange it to fiat? Right. What if you could use your
within app
burn tokens within app, right? To, I mean, whatever it is, right? Like
kind of like Buns, what Buns does.
Yeah.
Where you can buy things with the Buns token.
Yeah. Do you have a Buns up here?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, you got a sticker. There we go. Shout
It's
out
brought
Buns.
to you by Buns.
I still have some buns.
Do you?
Yeah, we should do a giveaway.
Just giving everything away on this podcast.
But yeah, I mean, like what you could do something in app, like maybe you want to. I mean, maybe it's something goofy like Berminal swag, or it's something more serious like some sort of premium feature.
Gotcha.
Right.
Got
Something
it.
that you can do because you have a certain amount of Berm tokens versus other people.
In-app features would make sense because
what
then
if-
you're not having to go to fiat. That makes
Right.
sense.
Right. What if you have Bermi token and you can use it to accelerate your video content in terms of impressions, or push it up?
As another in-app feature.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
So if you're like someone creating those videos,
Right.
Yeah.
You want to get more impressions, and then you would have to have a Bermi token.
Or it would like allow you the ability to maybe comment on Berminal or something, right?
Yeah.
And then get
Yeah.
something like that.
I think I just speaking out loud is kind of, and I've been having this conversation with Ev for like the last 2 or 3 weeks. You were on the podcast on the Roundtable podcast.
Shout out to Roundtable.
Yeah, shout out Roundtable. No, we don't actually have a Twitter. I was gonna say that. Anyways, it's on Distributed Media channel on YouTube, but it's called the Roundtable. Anyways, we've been having this conversation about contribution from to content creators. So in almost the same way, if in like 5 to 10 years, if Bitcoin becomes some type of internet currency, people will be fine exchanging Berm tokens for BTC and just being fine there. You see what I mean? But that requires BTC to have more mass adoption. But as we all know in crypto, BTC is close.
Yeah.
Not extremely close, but like people know about Bitcoin.
By far the closest.
Yeah, exactly. So if Bitcoin becomes this internet currency that people know about, I think you could then have a situation where, okay, I earn these Bermi tokens, I exchange it for Bitcoin, and I know what to do with it.
Yeah. It's a good point. It'll be interesting to see, and kind of back to the point on, when are these Berm tokens that some of us have been using for a while, or maybe we just started, using, right, or earning rather. My theory, and this kind of goes back to the weekly update teaser we were talking about last week. So the teaser was, for those who didn't hear, basically what we can say is that a little birdie told us basically that a major player in crypto, collaboration of some kind coming, right? Jimmy said that Trust Wallet is coming. Mm-hmm. So if you kind of put the pieces together here, Binance owns Trust Wallet. I wonder if Ray and the Berm team are waiting and are thinking about doing Binance Launchpad. Because it's working, right? Like we said, 3 for 3. If you want to get the word out about your new protocol, i.e. IOST, probably one of the best ways from a marketing standpoint would be the Launchpad. Here's this project that has all the users to back up, right? Like Bermi has been growing at like crazy leaps every week, every month. It's not just kind of like your quote unquote vaporware. There are 2 apps that everybody can use. It makes sense. I guess the argument to that would be like, well, why not wait until IOST is more mature and maybe we have a bull market or something?
Well, it's already working though. The Launchpad's already working. Right. So we don't need a bull market for the Launchpad to actually be successful.
Right.
I like
Can you
it.
imagine what that's going to look like whenever we
bull
return?
market come
Oh
back?
my goodness.
Yeah.
It's going to be impossible. I mean, they got to figure something out.
Oh, they can. I don't understand. If they're selling out in 10 seconds, why not raise the amount that they can raise?
They've been fixing all sorts of issues. I think CZ said that the issue this time was some sort of like caching issue, where if people had like reloaded at a certain time, it would have worked.
Got it.
But if only 380 people out of 5,000 are getting in, maybe there's a way you can like limit contributions or
That should-
something.
yeah.
You know,
100%.
I don't know. And they might be doing that, right? Like I haven't participated in one. I don't know.
Got it.
But that's my theory.
I like it.
My
I like it.
speculation.
Speculation, yes.
Yeah.
We'll have like a ring 10.
Hypotheticals.
Like
Right.
a little Mike's speculation. Mike's thoughts.
So we'll see.
So we'll move on to the next really quick piece of, well, I guess it's not news more than it is our own experience being a block producer. Obviously, Sutler Ventures runs our node. We produce blocks for the IOST network. What has that experience been like? Kind of give, I don't think a lot of the nodes have been, and it's not a fault against them, but they haven't been open with how the experience is and like rewards and how does this all work. So if you could, give a summary there.
Definitely. So I've been working with Connor. Connor's on our team. He's the one essentially on the tech side, right? We get to have fun. We get to drink beer, do podcasts. He's the one like in the weeds.
The principal
right?
architect.
Yes, the principal architect. We'll have him on the podcast for sure to get his perspective. But it's been, essentially really smooth. And when I say smooth, I mean that the process of going from being interested in running a survey node to actually producing blocks on the mainnet has been smooth compared to other protocols that I've been involved with running a block producer. So there was a small project called Rise, which was a fork off of the Lisk protocol, and then I believe the Shift, which are kind of two older projects. I know Lisk is still around. I'm not sure about Shift, but Rise was one, and then EOS for a little while as well. And basically Ray and Jimmy came to us, ironically enough, as we were kind of thinking about running one anyway, and we're like, hey, do you guys want to do this, right? Like, we've been on your podcast with ICO Alert. We like you guys. I think you've got a good following. I think you could help out, right? We know you're interested in this. Do you want to run one? We were thinking about it at the time, like I said, so decided to run with it. And basically what they said was, you can, if you want, do the entire setup yourself, right? Meaning like learn from scratch, right? Not interact with the IOST dev team at all. Kind of figure this out on your own, right? It'll take a lot longer, but you can do that if you want to do that way. Or we can kind of walk you through the process. And then finally, we'll basically just do everything for you. Basically meaning that like they have a team set aside to help these node providers, be they, technically proficient or not, set up the node. So that was one thing that definitely stood, alone versus some of the other protocols was basically like, hey, not only are there all these block rewards, not only like have we brought on all these other partners, but like we're not going to just kind of leave you out to dry here while we're on vacation spending our ICO money or whatever. Like we're going to help you through this process. So it was smooth throughout that. Once we actually went and launched mainnet, which March 10th, I believe, was the official day that we launched. Us and a handful of other block producers were producing blocks on the mainnet before that. So I think March 2nd might have been the first time we were doing that. Like I said, we were doing that with other block producers. IOST also had their own block producers in there just to make sure that there was enough to fill out that committee and to make sure it was smooth, right? And through that process, it's been interesting because the rewards have been very variable, right? Like one day we'll get 11,000 IOST maybe. Next day we'll get 48,000 IOST. Then we'll get 31,000 IOST, right? So I think there's a lot happening behind the scenes. Obviously, we talked about Huobi Pool last week on the weekly update and how that can kind of affect things. So, it's been variable, which has kind of been interesting, right? I don't think it's positive or negative either way. It's just something we've seen, something that's been interesting. I know we're starting to produce more and more blocks, which is good. That allows us to do more from an investment and a marketing standpoint. That allows our voters to earn more votes. So that's been good. I think since we started producing blocks, we're at about 400,000 IOST that we've earned. So that's good. But, overall, it's been relatively seamless. Okay. We haven't seen a lot of issues. There's no real issue with, you know, the IOST code malfunctioning or anything where like we're ready to produce blocks and for some reason it doesn't happen.
Okay.
So it's been good. I mean, hopefully that's like a transparent look into how things have been going.
So one question from a user perspective: if I vote for Sutler Ventures, do I immediately just get like from the BIS like platform that I'm voting on? How does the actual rewards get claimed? Are you committing an action and then that's sending the IOST to my wallet? How does that all work?
It's a good question, right? So two kind of broad points there and why each are important. So the first one, to answer your question, the block producer themselves has to claim the tokens in order for the voters to get rewarded, right? So if we do it every week, right, voters are only going to get it once a week. If we do it every 24 hours, which is what we do, we've got it automated, then they're going to get rewards every 24 hours. So
that's the problem people have been having. They're like, where are my rewards? Well, the block producer that you voted for actually hasn't committed the action.
Right.
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, there's that. Or in some cases, if the block producer isn't available or is having some issues on their end, they're not going to necessarily get the block reward because they're not producing those blocks. You know, one of the ways that the consensus setup works is that it judges each individual producer on how many blocks they produce, right? How essentially available they are to produce blocks. You know, if I need Dimitri to produce blocks and he's only doing it 50% of the time, I'm going to have less faith in him being able to produce blocks, right? So the consensus mechanism is taking that into account. But yeah, right? Like if you're not receiving your rewards at this point, it's probably related to the block producer. I know at the beginning, right after the 10th, there was maybe like I think a 3-day period where they were working with BIS and some others to make sure that those rewards were coming through. I know they are now because I've seen, you know, the IOST that I've voted towards Sutler, those rewards come through. But yeah, it's an important point, right? Like it's not necessarily a problem with IOST themselves. It could be a problem with the block producer, and it's something that, I mean, it goes back to like the democratic process that exists under IOST, right? Like if this block producer isn't doing anything for the community, isn't bringing anything to the ecosystem, isn't, you know, claiming their rewards but every 10 days, and you're somebody who, you know, wants to very quickly maybe offload those and sell them for fiat, or you know, want to see them in your wallet or whatever, that's a change that you can actually make and see a difference.
Yeah, I think that's what we saw, a lot of like reshuffling in terms of voters. You know, so I think that they've realized that they're not getting those rewards, and also maybe it was not communicated from the block producers. You know, the transparency in terms of when those should be claimed. I think that's why we saw like a little bit of a reshuffling. Yeah,
and the other important part of this is that. And this is kind of getting into the weeds from like a legal standpoint, but one of the reasons that we really took the leap and went to you know, get ourselves set up as a block producer is that in claiming those rewards, there's less function than other protocols of Sutler Ventures distributing the token, right? So what I mean from a legal standpoint is that if there are other nodes or block producers on other protocols where they are receiving the tokens and then they are distributing them, right, from like a manual process, that's tough for especially like say US-based block producers where the token may or may not be a security. If the SEC or CFTC or somebody comes in the US and says, hey, you know, blank is a security, that is a ton of liability on the block producer because now they are distributing a security
like dividends,
right? You know, in exchange for votes. So we're not seeing that on IOST because it's all done at the network level, right? Like we're not receiving the voters IOST and then going and like manually sending it from the address, right? It all happens at that network level. So that's a big advantage too. Not as obviously interesting to kind of talk about, but you know, security versus utility is a big topic in crypto and is one that the SEC and everybody, especially in the US, continue to talk about. So,
absolutely. So, a little bit that we'll get caught up on here is with the IOST update that actually happened, I think, yesterday, where they talked about the stablecoin IUSD being launched.
So Monday, right?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
Okay, so Monday. So yeah, it's gonna take 24 hours to push out this podcast. So yes, Monday was the update. They talked about the IUSD being launched, the stablecoin, and also the Medix airdrop that happened. We kind of want to get Dimitri's thoughts on that. I know he had some thoughts about the actual token economics. But what do you guys think about the stablecoin that's being launched, IUSD, and what is it going to be used for, and all of that?
For the stablecoin, I mean, it's natural progression of any protocol to have introduced the stablecoin. I think I really like the way they've actually designed it in terms of like begging off the other stablecoins.
Yeah. So it's backed by what? Paxos, USDC. I think it's 4 or 5 different ones. DAI is one.
Mm-hmm.
So it's actually backed by,
Right.
I'm gonna pull it up now. Yeah.
Like
Cool.
legitimate players, and I've wrote a piece about those main 4 really stable coins that you should keep an eye on in the past.
Are you chilling right now?
Yeah, I'm just putting a plug for myself, in terms of like the content that I've been putting out. So yeah, go check that out. It's on Medium, I think.
Yeah, so it says, this is from the article that actually was launched. This is specifically about the actual IUSD stablecoin. It says the IUSD stablecoin is launched by Rate3 Network, so props to Rate3 for bringing that.
Yep.
And can help to seamlessly transfer digital assets between the IOST network and other blockchains. Non-IOST digital assets such as PAX, GUSD, CircleUSD, and DAI can be stored on the IOST blockchain. Conversely, assets on the IOST blockchain can also be transferred to other blockchains. So what does that mean? Kind of unpackage that for someone.
Yeah, so I think we were going over this before the podcast. So essentially, let's imagine that for some reason you think IOST's price is going to tank, right? The IOST token price is going to tank. You want to move out of that as an investor, as a speculator, as a trader, whatever. You move that into IUSD, which is backed by these stable coins, right? That are legitimate stable coins. There are millions or hundreds of millions of dollars worth of these stable coins being traded on a 24-hour basis. Some of them, like USDC, is backed by Circle, which is essentially owned by Goldman Sachs, right? Like, it's going to be very rare that these have some sort of black swan event where, the size of crypto and some sort of catastrophic event can't be controlled or handled by somebody like a Goldman Sachs, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the counterparty risk there, understanding that IUSD is backed by all of these big players, is pretty low. So you move that into IUSD, but then let's say at the same time, ETH announces that they figured out the scalability problem that they've run into. So
Okay.
like, holy cow, I need to hop on this train quick. We're going to go from 135 to 235 here. You can actually, through a swap process that Rate3 has, convert that IUSD to the, essentially, as I understand it, the stable coin that they're running on ETH, and then use that stable coin to purchase ETH.
So why not just go from IOST to ETH?
Well, if, let's say, under a similar example, maybe ETH isn't doing that, but you just want to, ensure that your money isn't going to decrease because IOST token is tanking,
Okay.
right? So it allows you the ability to just quickly move into fiat without having to actually go through the whole process on an exchange.
Got it.
Right, where you're gonna suffer from things like slippage, right? Especially if you have a lot of IOST. If everybody's selling at the same time, you're gonna deal with even more in a lot of cases. So, like Dimitri said, it's just kind of like a necessary evolution with the protocol. I mean, we're seeing this with a handful of other more established protocols. So
Yeah, it gives more nimbleness in terms of when the risk aversion comes to the market. Let's say you need to quickly kind of hedge or just get out of that trade. It gives you nimbleness in terms of, I can get into USD rather than hop through so many hoops. Like I need to sell, let's say, IOST into some token that can be redeemed into fiat. That whole effect of kind of funneling through other cryptocurrencies in order to get to fiat is inefficient. You know?
And it's unstable.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, because one of the things that I see with the IOST is it being a way for people to use these dApps, because obviously you like, for example, right now if I'm on a dApp on EOS, I'm using EOS to actually play the dApp, right? But I don't want to be, again, like you're saying, open to the effects of the market just because I want to play this dApp, right? So I would just instead I would transfer into the stablecoin and play the actual dApp via the stablecoin, correct?
Right. Yeah. So if IOST is going up or down, that's going to affect basically what you're saying is like the amount of, say, credits you have on that dApp. Whereas if it's in a stable coin, you know for sure, hey, I'm going to get 10 plays or 100 plays or whatever.
Got it.
So,
Okay.
Yeah,
cool.
that makes sense. Yeah. And it's big, it's needed. Stable coins have been the story in 2018 for the most part. I don't know what the story will be in 2019, but 2018 was basically the year of the stable coins, as a lot of people have called it. And you know, your Coinbases, your Geminis, your Paxos, right? These people are not just doing a great job, but they're making a lot of money out of these stablecoin setups. So it's good to see IOST on board that.
Dimitri's looking for his article right now. He's looking at it for 10 minutes.
I know.
Dude, I think we deleted it.
I think
Really?
we, we had to. Yeah,
it was poor.
It was not quality.
Yeah, you know,
Jesus,
we're all about
quality.
that quality.
All right. So we're wrapping up here. The last thing that let's kind of wrap it up in a way where we're all talking about what we want to talk about. So Crypto Derby is a dApp that's coming out, very shortly. I know it's already out on Ethereum, I believe. So it's obviously porting over to IOST. They're actually selling racetracks, which is something that we were talking about pre-podcast. So essentially, what they'll be able to do is with these races that are happening with various tokens, I'm assuming, where that you can predict the ending price at a certain time. Someone can actually go in. I think they're only selling like 4 or 5 of these racetracks, and you could actually own that track where people are betting, and I think you make part of the fees that are being issued to those bettors.
Yeah, so it's kind of like Decentraland has their big real estate setup.
Yes.
Right? That's what I understood it as, is basically not only can you come in and bet on horses, or if the horses are corresponding to, prices of tokens or something like this, you can actually, if you're early enough and kind of, have enough weight, right? If you have enough IOST, you could go and own the racetrack as if you owned the Belmont racetrack, and every time a race happens, you're going to earn a fee, right? You're going to earn basically a take from that racetrack. So it'll be interesting to see, okay, what would you say? There were 5 that are being sold?
Yeah, so I think there's 5 being sold at 160 Ethereum a piece, and that's going to equal 3 million IOST.
I wonder, let's assume now, right? Very little people know about Crypto Derby. Let's compare it to a Crypto Kitties, right? Where those who were super into ETH maybe are hearing about this. They're like, oh, I can get a Genesis cat or something, right? If this blows up, it's going to be worth a lot of money. So if I wonder if what happens if you're one of those first race course owners and this actually blows up? I mean, the graphics on it are awesome. If we can dub some of those graphics over the podcast, we should. But if this blows up and you're one of the first race course owners, let alone the fees that you're going to make on people using it, being able to resell that in the same way that Decentraland made a ton of people a lot of money, where they got in kind of on the primary plots of land at first, and then as it grew in popularity, they were able to sell them for 5, 10, 20x, whatever. There's an interesting investment opportunity there.
Yeah.
All things considered, with the risk that it never takes off, not a lot of people use it, kind of thing.
Sure.
So
It's not an investment advice.
yeah, exactly. Not investment advice.
Not
Yeah.
financial or investment
Definitely
advice.
not.
I think we're going to throw that disclaimer up.
Flash it, yeah.
Yeah.
It's actually really cool too, because I think the owner of the actual racetrack, and there's going to be 4 or 5 separate ones that'll look different. I love talking about these digital world things, man, because I think you're going to be able to sell advertisements within each racetrack.
No
amazing.
way.
So the owner is going to have control over that.
Damn.
Yeah, so you can sell that advertisements to crypto companies. It goes back to dApp usage, right? It goes back to adoption, because if this dApp never gets adopted, then all of this is for moot. You probably wasted 160 Ethereum or 3 million IOST. So
Yeah.
It's cool, man.
It's going to happen at some point. I mean, we were talking before the podcast about the big Google gaming thing that's happening today and how it might be like a VR kind of setup. Like, at some point, there is going to be a digital world where so much value is created, so much value is transacted. You know, whether or not that'll be this or another dApp or anything blockchain related, obviously is impossible to say. But at some point, that's going to happen, you know.
It's awesome.
And it's exciting to see kind of like different traditional setups where, you know, in order to buy a race course, like you'd have to have a ton of money, I would imagine, or to build one or something like that. So it's cool, right? Like it's a brand new world essentially.
Awesome. Well, did you guys have anything before we wrapped up? Any stories you wanted to touch on? Any comments, notes, plugs?
Thoughts?
No plugs.
What about
Right.
Can you teach our viewers one Russian word every week?
Yeah.
I
I don't know.
How do you say IOST in Russian?
IOST.
There's your Russian word of the week. No, I would just say remember to comment and submit your name for the podcast. Like I said, we'll send you some swag. It'll be nice too. It's what we're going to be wearing, so we'll make sure it's nice for you. And of course, thoughts, comments, feedback. Right? If you hate the bar, we should do it somewhere else. Let us know. We do need to add another keg. If anybody, this one kicked. So if anybody has a good beer that they've been drinking,
Bud Light?
You know, no,
Comment.
not Bud Light. Comment. Let us know. We'll throw you some swag for that if you throw us a good keg idea. And we get the keg, and it's a great beer, then you know, we'll make sure to throw you some swag there. But yeah, you know, we're having fun with this. We wanna know what you guys think. Any questions you have, always throw them in the comments. Tweet us. It's just at Sutler Ventures. We'll make sure to answer them here on our weekly updates and on Twitter in general. So
awesome. Yeah, and again, SutlerVentures.com is also the website that has all the information you would need to know. Telegram at Sutler Ventures as well. Make sure you subscribe to this channel. Where you can find the weekly update, these podcasts, and any other videos that we do. Yeah, but this was a great first time.
Yeah.
I thought that we kind of killed this.
not bad. Cool. It was a lot of fun.
That's it.
Cheers.